press that button there. Hopefully that puts us live.
I'll check for you, bro.
Right, okay, guys. Welcome to episode 2, series 2 of On the Hook. So we've got today Rosie back, SkinnyQuinny and Cptsalty, who's now changed his name to Toxic Killer Man. So I'm sure there'll be a story behind that. So hope you're all good, guys. How's everybody?
I'm feeling intimidated by SkinnyQuinny. I'm just gonna keep saying it, bro.
I'm still waiting for Rosie to shout, but I'm good.
My threatening aura is overpowering everyone.
Yeah, Skinny, stop intimidating us all.
Feel intimidated, bro, just a little bit.
Yeah, well, you don't have to feel intimidated, Skinny. You're going to have to be on best behaviour today. Is that alright? We'll give you like a little mini warning. Don't shut us all down. Right. Okay, guys. So, last week we discussed a lot. This week we've got a lot of things to discuss again. We've got some questions from people asking us a few things that they'd like us to discuss on there. So, we can go through that. But first things first, this was a topic brought up by yourself, Rosie, and you've got a couple of videos out on it. Hooks being useless. So I thought, let's discuss this as a group. So I know you've had a big say about it, but tell me your thought process behind it.
Okay, so my thought process on that whole thing was simply, I'm referring to the state of the game where it's the initial hook. Like if you ever watch I believe it's Otofu is the bigger one, and then Scott Jun. They have this impression of the game where it's like, oh, you hook somebody and then your pressure started, and then you have like they think it's like this magical world where you hook someone, then all of a sudden 3 survivors are pressured, and I just think that's a very flawed interpretation of the game, because the guy has 60 seconds on the hook. I didn't know how much time they actually had until I looked it up.
Yeah.
And they have 60 seconds per hook stage, and I just thought that was absolutely insane that they think that that's pressure right away. If you have more than one hook, that's obviously pressure. And then I believe in that video I defined it as a situation. So if they wait too long, it can become pressure eventually. But like, there is no incentive for the survivors to get off generators as soon as somebody's hooked. They can slam the gens first. The gens can be a bigger priority than the rescue right away. So That's why one guy being hooked, especially that first hook. Your most useless hook is your first one. And then, but that's like, they can still put you in a state of the game where you can't recover from, even after one hook. And then if you just keep one hooking, like if you only have one hook the entire time, that's not pressure. That was my take.
Yeah.
That was my hot take.
All right. What does everybody else think?
I mean, I'm like inclined to agree, because I a lot of the times when I hook people, like you just see survivors just do gens before friends and just commit like 2 or 3 gens off in the distance and think, well, now we've got the upper hand because we've got less gens to do, and then they'll come and save. They never like drop what they're doing and come for the save. And it's the same with like, if you're in a situation where you've downed someone and you're carrying them to the hook, you'll walk past the gen and survivors are just sitting there working on it as you're you're next to them about to hook someone, and they're on the gen, not even giving a fuck. Like,
yeah. Cptsalty?
The worst thing about that is that the first hook phase used to be 45 seconds. You know, because people were complaining after that campers will be standing there waiting till they die on the hook because they had more time. But what they have to understand is people will camp no matter how long you make the hook state. If you make it 12 minutes, people will waste 12 minutes to wait for the guy to die on hook, because there are people that are lazy as killers. And there are people that will try to get as many hooks as possible, and then are people that try to get the hooks to matter in the end. And if you go for hooks and you say something like, oh, you have no pressure because you are not a hook, and dude, if you get one on the hook, you have no one injured, you haven't seen any other survivor, the other 3 survivors are free to do whatever they want to do for 1 minute. What is pressure about that? There's more pressure to slug people and hit them all at once, all one time. Having all 4 people injured is more pressure than one hook.
Yeah,
You know?
mean, from a survivor's point of view, when I'm playing the game, I will, I fall under that gens before friends, unless obviously they're going to fall under a different health state, like the second stage on the hook. Sorry. So, but for me, I think where the pressure comes off the hook is when someone's been hooked, and then I see someone else has been hit. That's when I think, right, now the pressure's on. So my point of view, I'm like, okay, so I can see where these content creators, where they're coming from with them saying, yes, that pressure is when you get the hook. So say, for instance, 3 people doing the gen, and we'll talk about it in a second because I've got a bit of a theory about that, but say 3 people are doing a gen, you've got your first hook, someone has to come off a gen to go and save, but they've got a minute. Now, if they've been working on it already for 20 seconds, then they can wait that minute because it's about, 80 seconds for a gen to pop if you're doing it separately. But if you then hit someone else, so that gen will be saved, theoretically speaking, but then isn't the pressure on the other guys now? One of them has to come off a gen to save? Or are you saying that that's, well, let's say, bullshit really, because they're going to sit on the gens, finish them off anyway?
Well, see, my perspective on that, and I kind of covered this in the video. I guess it would kind of depend on who the killer is.
Yeah.
Like, if the killer is maybe Nurse or Spirit, that is way more threatening. Maybe their hooks become pressure sooner because of who they are, because they're going to get the down sooner. But if you're playing as a Trapper, like you know that you can kite Trapper for like enough time, and then you kind of. One thing I also wanted to add was you talked about the killer gets the down in 20 seconds and then gets the first hook. So if the killer, let's say the killer downs the guy in 20 seconds, but it took the killer about 50 seconds to find someone because of how bad the early game math is. That puts the killer 70 seconds until he gets his first down, and then another 5 seconds to hook the guy. So that's 75 seconds. So then there's probably 3 gens almost done right there, or even give or take just a little bit. Like, even if the killer, maybe 40 seconds, maybe, but like that would be like there's 15 seconds for 3 gens to pop. Even if the killer barbecues and saves one of them, 2 of them are popping, and then they can get the rescue. And I just feel like that's not pressure in the sense. It's just the survivors having control of the game the entire time.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. And obviously I said 20 seconds, but you're right. By the time you find a survivor, chase, down, hook, and you're already on the back foot. I did have a game today with a pig, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to commit to this chase just to see what would happen. And I wasn't playing against an amazing survivor. He just knew the tiles. Had picked Coldwind, and he just went from tile to tile, dropping the pallets. By the time I'd actually put a trap on his head, 2 gens had already gone. By the time I picked him up and put him on the hook, the 3rd one popped, and it was just like straight away you're on the back foot with it. So
yeah,
is that an issue at the moment?
Yep. The problem is, when do you down someone in 20 seconds? Like I said last podcast episode when I did the math of when you go in the straight line just holding W and shift, how long it takes for the killer to catch up twice, because he has to hit him twice after the stupid speed burst that they get after they get injured. Why did they get rewarded for getting out of position and hit by the killer? I don't know, but this speed burst, if they just hold W and shift, that you need 30 seconds to catch up to the guy to down him if you hit him twice. If you're not hillbilly or Leatherface and have an insta down, you need 30 seconds to just follow a guy in a straight line, not being able to catch him or like caught him off guard or something like that. You have to use 30 seconds of just downing a guy that runs in a straight line, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And on top of finding survivors on maps that are too big and the spawn is too far away from the killer, so the killer on some maps needs half a minute to go to the other side of the map to find someone, and getting him to chase fast is basically it. And even if you down him in 30 seconds, which is basically the only possible way of that happening, is the survivor's just running in a straight line, not using any tiles. And that's so unlikely that happens that, yeah, you have no chance of actually getting a hook or any pressure before Jen's popping. That's just mathematically not possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had fast downs before. Like, I've found people within about 5-10 seconds and downed them like 10-15 seconds after that, and still a gen will pop before I can get them on the hook.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. And I mentioned it before because I noticed it. I seem to have noticed it more when the last update, 18.5, whatever it was, when that brought out. I just thought all of a sudden, is it just me? Are these gens going really quick? There was a lot of theories around. People were saying survivors were scared of being chased because of the hit validation, because there was an issue with the server, so they weren't getting involved in chases. But it's still happening now, where gens do go quite quickly, and how do we solve that issue? But I mean, looking at some of the comments, Reaper Tech, welcome to the chat there. So that's why Clown sucks. He's good at one hooking, nothing else. Just a thought. Just Ash, you like the term gem before friends? Yeah, it's a very good term. Hi Tristan, how are you doing? We are definitely live, Tristan, so feel free to pop in and question. Reaper Tech, survivors have too much control for this game to be balanced. To be balanced, survivors should lose some control. Interesting statement that, because that's the issue. Is for me, I don't know how people can say the game is survivor sided, and I've pointed to content creators when you watch their videos, how to play, how to become a better killer, what to do. Watching them, they'll always say, if a survivor's good, don't chase them. Leave them. If they're going to a good tile, if the survivor's doing this, if the survivor's doing that, capitalising this mistake. So everything is geared around what the survivors are doing. So yeah, I agree with you on that one, Reaper Tech. I do think the game is survivor sided at the moment. How about this? When a survivor is hooked, the notification of the survivors will be stalled until another survivor physically discovers that they are hooked. Interesting concept. What do you guys think about that? So, survivor is hooked, the notification of the survivors won't go off until another survivor physically finds the hooked person. How does that sound?
Just reduce the hook timer, so they die faster. So they have to get off gens. That's what they had. They had 40 seconds on first stage. 40 seconds is a big difference between 1 minute, It's like 40 seconds means, I can't just finish my gen and then go there and still have a lot of time. I have to make a decision of if I commit to that gen or gold saving. With just adding 20 seconds on top of that, you take the decision of survivors away if they go for the save or just sit on a gen. Just reduce the hook timer, so make hooks deadly. But for that was Maurice. Maurice were for that case, because hooks were not deadly enough, and Maurice made hooks deadly.
Yeah, Rosie, Rosie, what would you suggest? I know, because as I say, this topic's brought up because of the videos you've done. So, how do you make hooks more useful?
I made a separate video where I read some comments on it, and we had some suggestions. I'm thinking about the suggestion that was given about the auras. The problem is that you don't just get the hook notification. The survivor at first goes down and then lets off, their aura is revealed when they're down. And then you can see the aura when they're picked up, and then you get and then the hook actually happens. For that to work, you'd have to make knockout base cross map. That knockout would just be base per cross map. And then it would be like Hex the Third Seal, but even stronger. Solo queues would get, this is my main problem with that idea is that it just wrecks solo queue more and doesn't even do anything to Swift, because Swift just says, hi, I'm hooked by Shaq. You know what I mean? Swift is not affected by it at all. It just kills solo queue even more. Which, it's not that that's just the effect of it. It's not that I care about that effect. It's just that the devs are never going to do anything like that because it's going to kill solo queue even more. It wouldn't, but like it's also it just wouldn't affect the balance of the game because Swifts wouldn't get affected by it. Swifts would just be able to stay on their gens, and it wouldn't have any effect at that level. I don't think.
Yeah, Skinny.
I mean,
Anything
from that suggestion, surely what I read into it is like surely that would just encourage them to stay on the gens more, because like why
Possibly,
would
yeah.
you? If someone gets hooked and they don't know where they're hooked at, why would you get off a gen to go on this like needle in a haystack hunt when you could just camp a gen and rush them all? Like, sure, someone might die because you'll never find them, but if they die and you get out, it doesn't make a difference. It's your rank and your account that's getting the rewards of the match, not theirs. You know, it's you know.
Yeah, I think what Tristan meant was probably a case of the timer would still be going, so it would mean that somebody would have to waste time going to check the hooks to see where the survivor is. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tristan, if he's still around.
One interesting comment that I got. This is kind of a neat suggestion. I thought. Well, I had a lot of interesting suggestions, but one that I feel like I want to bring up here is the fact that the struggle phase could be a different timer than the first phase. Like, I mean, it's called the struggle phase. Like, it implies that there's some kind of struggle. I mean, it's the same phase. You could do 60-40 seconds, like 40 for the struggle phase. It would let the survivor have to mash the button a lot less, which is a frustrating thing on their end. They don't like mashing that button, right? 60-40, so 60 for no hook 1, and then the struggle phase, and then they just mash the button for 40 seconds, although I think that's confirmed getting reworked soon anyway. But the struggle phase could be a different amount of time than the first hook phase. It would put more pressure on it would help killers pressure late game, which is where they are stronger anyway. It would just add to, it wouldn't really fix the early game, but it would at least do something there. Another suggestion I got was maybe 50-50, just lower it by 10 seconds. I mean, there's a lot people have suggested, but I don't think the devs are gonna do anything about it. That's the biggest problem.
I think the problem with it all is that, and I'm sure people on chat and you guys that are on the call, I think it's all very circumstantial. When you've mentioned about certain things, I'm thinking, well, actually, as a survivor, I would have died if that happened because, you know, this circumstance, the killer done this, the killer done that. And I think that's the issue. It's like when we were saying about gens, you know, about gen speed. It has seemed to have gone quicker, but then you will get some games that the survivors just aren't efficient and you've got a good chance against them. So it just does all vary, and that's, I feel like this is a bigger problem in Dead by Daylight. We know, you know, we can joke about the stats, Almoni's stats and things like that, but you can't get a very good indication of things, just hunches really, and just personal experience. Which does bring me on to the next thing, which Cptsalty, you wanted to bring up about tiles and chases. Now, we were talking about chases. I've got a funny feeling I know where you're going with this. But chases, how important they are, how long they take. Fire away, Cptsalty. What do you think?
In my opinion, is like what chases are right now. They don't benefit the killer. They just benefit the survivor so they have fun in it. Because most of the tiles are either too close to each other, or too safe on their own, or the survivors can just leave the tile and then get the huge distance on the killer. Like, the killer has no power in tiles, which makes this whole chasing thing completely useless. If you have people that actually do something other than sitting on the corner of the map, self-caring or something like that, you know? If they sit on gens, if you have one chase and 3 people sitting on a gen, and the guy goes into a main building like Asylum, you can't chase him there because this building is too broken. And you don't know where the others are. You can just anticipate them sitting on a gen, but what do you do with your chases? And just by having the survivors in control of what happens in any stage of the game, is just stupid. And for me, it's like you should avoid strong loopers and go for the weaklings as much as possible, and commit as mass as possible to chases. You get hooks otherwise. You can injure people on generators. So if they want to sit on generators injured, they are unsafe, and next time you get them out of guard and you get them out of position, stuff like that. You have a strong looper, you get the hit on him, then you leave him, and then later you find him because he's not healing, something like that. But that's what you have to do. So you basically ignore half of the game. It's just not going for tiles because they don't benefit the killer at all. Which is this argument of hooks versus kills, because chases don't do anything. It's just giving the survivors some kind of interaction where they are in favor of. And you know, if you play killer efficient and you try to kill them in the end, like, why should you give them extra kind of attraction, you know?
Yeah. What do the rest of you guys think about that?
I'm gonna let Skinny go first because I'm feeling intimidated by it.
Not gonna let that one go, are you? I mean, I've had several games where like I'll play a tile to get the survivor off of it, and then by the time I come out of that tile from like breaking the pallet or going around the window, I'll look and they're already on another tile because they're just that close together. Like, I think one of the biggest examples I've seen of it is a lot of the rework maps, like things like Badham. I know there's like, you'll break a pallet, and then by the time you've come out the animation, they're already on another one, and then behind them there's two more that are like a 5-second walk away. Like there's nothing you can really do, and no matter what way you play them, whether you force them to drop it, whether you bloodlust it, there's nothing you can do because they will still always have another one that they can just go to, no matter how you mind game it. It's not like a complete hopeless situation. There are a few tiles that like I've noticed I tend to pretty much always lock down. Like things like TL walls, like they're very easily mind gameable, and a lot of survivors like fall for like the most basic mind games on that. But as soon as you run into that one survivor who's a little bit more ahead than the others and pays attention and doesn't like guess, they actually react to what you're doing, then it's game over.
Yeah, Rosie?
Well, this is probably one of the most complex issues in the game, just because there's several different ways to approach it. With a lot of the fixes to the maps, it's clear that the devs or a lot of other people are in favor of the tile spacing is what's really bad in this game. Which again, the tile spacing is bad. However, the only reason that a lot of these tiles are actually problems is because the killers are just so weak in chase. They're just so weak. They don't have. I think Captain Sully brought this up. There are how many killers in this game when they get to a tile, they're base 115 and that's it. But like okay, let me Legion, Ghostface, Myers. I could keep going, but like the killers just have no power. Like a lot of these tiles would actually be a lot weaker if killers like Nurse Spirit and Deathslinger were a bit more standard. And there would also be less complaining about those characters if they were more standard. The problem with our strong killers right now is they stick out like a sore thumb because they're the only ones that can do anything about it.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that can actually pressure those tiles. So when you're playing a doctor, or you're playing against a Freddy, or you're playing a Spirit, or you're playing a Nurse, it's very different from the norm, because survivors are used to be going, oh, I'm at Shack against Legion. He's here for at least 45 seconds now. But like against a competent killer, you can't do that, and that's the reason why I'm trying not to just give Identity 5 a blowjob here. But like a lot of the same tiles in Identity 5 are just so much weaker because of how strong the killers are, and how they can actually threaten you and chase. And if we just had killers with with stronger powers be more standard, I think that would be a better fix than any tile spacing adjustment you could possibly do, because you could because the problem when you break a pallet and that they're at the next tile is not that they're inherently at the next tile, it's that you can't do anything about the tile they're at. If you could just have more killers like a Pyramid Head that could shoot through it, or a Deathslinger that could shoot over it, or a Spirit that can mind game it, or a Nurse that can go through it, you would have less problems where there's no gameplay at the tiles. The problem with those killers is not that there's no gameplay, it's that there is. And they like the gameplay being non-existent because they don't feel in control anymore when they're at the tiles, and that's the real reason why they're annoyed at them.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I mean, you touched upon something that I've said for a while now, is that there isn't many viable killers. This is the issue. Again, Rosie, I'm referring to a video that you made when you were talking about the 50k streaks. This is the issue that we have, because we're watching someone with 9,000 hours against people with 500-600 hours, and the message you're getting off that video is these killers are viable, but they're not. There's only, in my opinion, there is 3, maybe 4 actual viable killers that can handle that. This is why I use Freddy. When I go against strong teams, I want to have Freddy, because I've got stuff that I can pressure them with. It's not just a case of the chase. It's not a case of he's got everything. So he's got the map pressure. He's standard in chase 115, but he's got his snares, he's got his pallets, he's got a lot of things going for him, and it's the same with the nurse. You mentioned the nurse there, and there's not enough of these killers in the game. It's alright, as I say, you can go trapper sometimes, but I can guarantee, all these people, let's say 50k streaks, goes trapper, go against a red rank team 50 times. How many times do you think you'll actually get more than 2 kills? It's... Yeah, go on, sorry.
Ox said he couldn't get more than 5 if they were actually on his level.
Yeah. And
like, what those streaks are, I can't remember who, somebody said this to me. It might have been... Oh, it was a guy, it was one of my subscribers. He said the way that you could prove, like, the way that you could theoretically prove your point is get a new account and then go to rank 20 and then do the same thing. Even if you're not as good as Ots, you're playing people with the same hour differentiation. If I were to just go to rank 20 right now and then do a 50k streak there, it's the same hour differentiation.
It's funny.
So if people are not impressed by that, you can see why I'm not impressed with Ots' streaks.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should use that example, because that's the example I said to you as well, Cptsalty. Remember when we spoke about it? If I make a Smurf account and I go, when I moved, I've only recently moved on to PC, so when I moved on to PC, it was great going up the ranks. I could play Huntress, I could play the killers that I'm really hopeless with in the red ranks, but I could play them, and I was getting 4Ks. It was easy, because the survivors weren't at the same level. I'd carried over knowledge that I had after playing for 2-3 years on Xbox, so I knew the basics. Yes, I wasn't, PC might be slightly different, but for the better, really, when it comes to like frame rates and that. But yeah, it's just, and I can't remember the content creator, but I seen one where it says, we're going to new account, start at rank 20 and see how far we get. And I'm like, well, is that really a big achievement? Because it's not. Is it sending the wrong signals? So
yeah, Dowsy did that in his hardcore killer challenge, where he played with basic perks and then basically went on a brand new account and then just played with whatever perks he get, and from rank 20 to rank 1. When he loses one game, he has to go to the next skill and stuff like that. And I said, like, what does it prove? Like, you basically play against rank 20s as a probably godlike killer,
Yeah.
Ryuga did something similar.
I was ranked 10 within 2 weeks of starting the game. Like, that's not an accomplishment, bro.
There are people that are 60 hours in the game in red ranks, so like I'm questioning what kind of people they play, because I'm playing 170 hours with my new account and I haven't reached rank 1 yet, so I get sweaty teams all the time, It's like I just get unlucky or something like that, but I heard on both people that have 60 hours in the game in red ranks, It's
And this is why I like the idea of MMR. I really do like the idea. It sounds perfect if it's implemented correctly, but because I want to try these killers and I want to be eased into them. I played as a spirit today. I very rarely play as a spirit. The gens were done in 4.5 minutes or something, I couldn't find the survivors because I'm not used to probably using my ears as much as what I do with other killers, relying on them alone. And I'm like, this is Spirit. From what I've seen, I would class as a viable killer. She's always in the top 3 when people are naming them. But it's just about getting used to. So MMR would solve that issue and getting them. But I just don't think there is enough viable killers in the game that can hold their own. Let me just quickly jump to some of the chat, guys. Reaper Tech, no tension whatsoever in the game, and Survivor now is just boring because there's nothing exhilarating. You found the game more from the survivors when you didn't know about broken stuff. Yeah, so I think the game loses its horror element pretty quickly, doesn't it? Tristan, you have the right idea. So yeah, when you were saying about the timer would still go on the hook. Reaper Tech, you switched because you couldn't find fun holding the button 24/7 with no fear attention with a skill check. So I'm presuming you mean you've switched from survivor to killer. Tristan, Gunslinger and the Blight seem like the last few viable killers. Now I know Skinny will probably agree with you on Blight. Deathslinger, viable killer, guys.
The thing is, what I don't understand is why do they make those killers that have good powers 110% movement speed? Like, what is the point of that? You have big maps and you have deadly people in chases. Why don't just make normal fucking speed? Like Gamekeeper in Identity TV is basically deathling on crack, and is one of the weaker killer in the game. You know, it's like, what is the point of making this killer slower just because his chase is actually useful? You know,
yeah.
It makes no fucking sense.
Well, we'll come to that in a second. Rosie, Skinny, Deathslinger, viable killer.
I'm intimidated, Skinny. You gotta go first, dude.
I mean, he can still be like countered a lot on loops. Like I know pallets are a big counter for him. If you just pre-drop them, or if you're on the other side and he shoots you, you can't do anything. Windows though, he's got good window denial because even if you're through that window, it doesn't make a difference. He'll grab you and he'll hit you. That's it, gone.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's sort of a mixed bag because like unlike Huntress, who can still like screw you over at both a window and a pallet, Slinger is doomed by pallets, so he still loses out on like 50% of the chase.
Yeah. I wouldn't put him as a viable killer, but in that, it's hard for me to talk about range killers because I just can't aim. So for me, he doesn't sit in there. However, that is probably down to my own effects of being trash as a range killer. Should you buy Slinger or the Legion? For me, I would say the Legion. You've put on they both seem like fun, but honestly, our main doctor is very close to Legion. I would recommend Legion. I don't know about the rest of the guys.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. Well, first thing I want to talk about, I call him Shit Slinger, but I actually think he's okay. Like when he came out, I thought he was just terrible. Like I thought he was just terrible when he came out. But I think I'm growing on him. He's not viable, I don't think, but he's very, very close. He has a power that's viable. But him being on 110 is the thing that stops him. If he was 115, if he was 115, he'd be better than Huntress because he doesn't have a windup.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's on 110 and that's enough, bro. I know Scott Judge made a video about how there's no difference between 110 and 115, and then his entire comment section was like, "But what about loops, Scott?" And then Scott said, "Oh, well, there is a difference in loops." So that's. So that video was a joke, and you didn't need to make it. But so he's not viable, but he's very, very close. And then as for Deathslinger or Legion, even though I think Deathslinger's better, Legion has Discordance, which is definitely the best perk you can get out of those 6. So like they're both not viable, so you might as well get the perk that's good.
Yeah. I Am Trash, that's the name of the person who's wrote it. How do you think they should buff Trickster and Yunjin's perk? How they should buff Trickster is... Skinny, do you want to go ahead on this? Because I know we plugged your video last week, and I don't know, really enjoyed the video. Thought it made sense. So, do you want to say...
Are we focusing on the perks or the killer in general?
I think the killer in general. How do you think they should buff Trickster? It does say perks, yeah. So
yeah. Well, in regards to his perks, I'd say they're good, but they're too situational, or they're just like improving on what we already had. Like Starstruck, I think that's the down people while carrying one. That one's for me too situational because like at the end of the day, if you're using it, as soon as you pick someone up, it does the whole exposed thing that it does with any time you get exposed. You know, it makes the sound, it puts the skull on your screen. and survivors will immediately know, oh, I'm an insta-down, I'm just going to run now.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not using it, they'll run in front of you and you can get a free hit out of it. You're not going to insta-down them, but I'd argue injuring someone for free without having to put any effort in is 10 times better than insta-downing them, because you can't really do anything. If you're carrying someone and you insta-down them, by the time you hook the person you're currently carrying, the dude you insta-down is going to be picked up. It's going to make no difference. So that's how I think about that one. In terms of buffing it, I don't know, make it like Noed maybe, where it doesn't tell them that you're using it until you actually down someone with it, and that way you can at least maybe use it once or something. I just think it's a bit situational. What's his other ones? Crowd control, I think, is okay. I mean, it's just a better, stronger bamboozle. I wouldn't really do anything to it just because it's fine as is. I can see why you would use that or bamboozle. You know, I can see why there'd be choices there. Sometimes you'd want it over bam, and sometimes you'd want bam over crowd control. What's his other one? No Way Out. See, the thing with No Way Out is it's situational. It's an end game perk. Like, you wouldn't, like, yeah, you could probably get all 4 survivors hooked throughout the match. I mean, you can do it regularly with barbecue, so I don't see why the difference would be there. But the problem is it's 40 seconds. It's no time at all. And you could stack it with, like, Remember Me or something, but that's like going back to when Twins came out and people were saying, oh, Power Struggle will be good. It's like, no, because you have to put 3 other perks on to make it viable. And at that point, you're basically making a meme build. So it's like, it's not viable on its own. You kind of need to put stuff with it, because otherwise it's just not doing anything. In terms of buffing it, I don't really know. I think I'd just change it. I don't think we need it, because like we've got stuff like Blood Ward and we've got stuff like Remember Me. We don't need another thing to slow gates down. I think what they did with that perk was they created it to sort of kind of stop people from 99 in gates.
Yeah.
But what's going to stop like 40 seconds of just not being able to touch the gates? What's that going to do to stop 99 in it? Where are you going to be?
People stealth out 2-minute corruption. They can handle 40 seconds.
Exactly. Like it's not effective at all. I couldn't really, off the top of my head, I couldn't think of a way to buff it other than just make it something else. It doesn't make sense to do what it does.
Yeah.
As for the survivors perks, the Gen one, I think I'm a little bit. I don't think it needs a buff in this, like, because it's a bit stupid. I think the problem with that one is the fact it's rewarding the survivors for the killer doing their job. The survivors get 3 tokens, each worth 1%, every time the killer hooks someone. What's the logic in that? That's literally saying to the killer, oh, just slug everyone, because otherwise they'll just generous you with this perk. Like, because if you keep hooking people, and they keep holding on to these tokens, eventually it'll get to the point where they can get like a good 25% of the gen in one great skill check. And I'm not sure if it works this way, but if it does, it'll be stupid. Imagine this with Detective's Hunch. I think, is that, or is it Stakeout? No, it's Stakeout. Detective's Hunch is the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it stacks. I hope it doesn't. But if it does, that's broken, because then you don't even need to hit the great skill check. You'll just hit a good skill check, and it gives you like 25%. It's just I think the problem with that perk, I can't remember the name of it, but the problem with that perk is I wouldn't make it so that the survivors are rewarded for the killer doing their job. I'd make it something more like, the other survivor perks, like take a protection hit or unhook someone or do X amount of time on a gen, something like that. Then I could accept it. It's the fact that it's like, oh, the killer hooked someone, here, have free gen progress. Like, there's no reward. There's no.
How is that not passive reward?
Yeah, it's so dumb, because they don't have to do anything. It's just, oh, someone else got hooked. Well done for surviving. Here's some free time. Like, it's just stupid. I'm a fan of Smash Hit. My only problem is, I think a couple days before the PTB, Ryuga released a massive list of changes he'd make to every single perk to balance the game. And one of his changes was turning Dead Hard into what is now Smash Hit, where if you slammed the pallet, you got a speed boost and ran.
Yeah.
And I would have liked that as a replacement for Dead Hard. I don't like that they both coexist, and you can have now another exhaustion perk, and also Dead Hard still exists. So I like Smash Hit if it was a replacement to Dead Hard. I don't want both. What's the last one? When you get hit within 12 meters of another survivor, you don't leave scratch marks or something.
Yeah,
I know it's something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely pointless. I don't know. If you're within 12 meters of another survivor and you're not already hiding, you're in front of the killer. Like, what is the use to that? It's how I would buff it. I don't really know.
I said that one could be kind of cute if it was tear radius or 32 meters, because then Oni or Myers could infectious fright, and then you don't leave scratch marks for the next 10 seconds, even though they got your screech bubble.
Could
They
work.
could come after you. You could come after you. You wouldn't leave scratch marks. I thought that would be cute. It wouldn't be very good, but it would be cute.
Yeah. I mean, the problem I have with trying to like buff perks or trying to come up with any new perk now is we've gotten to the point where there's so many perks, it's hard not to come up with like, oh, this perk we already have, but if it did this instead of what it does, like there's too many perks in the game now to make something completely unique. Like they're all just going to be feeding off of each other or feeding into each other. It's kind of really hard to do new perks now.
That's why they just steal from the community. Oh, I'm on fire today.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I've seen that. It was a trickster's perks, wasn't it? That someone had found in a forum 2 years ago or something. Yeah.
Oh man, those perks that they made up, they're so broken, man. Like this community's retarded. Like holy shit. Giving a survivor a free hit whenever a killer hits another survivor while he's in chase. Holy shit! Stacking that like how can survivors are retarded in this game? Like this community is trash. Holy shit!
But it's like to give them. Let's give them credit. Is that the game is coming up 5 years old. They have run out of ideas in regards to perks, things like that. But credit, because the game, whether it's on its way out or whatever, it is still very much alive. So they are, they have done stuff right. But it's come to a point now where I think, especially with the release of Chapter 18 and how broke it was, things like that, that they've got to sort of make amends. I know a lot of people have left the game as well, moved on. And we'll come to that in a second. But
if they want the new meta, they have to have all other meta perks, or else nothing bullshit. Because they will never create another Metal of Men before it got nerfed because it was broken. They will never make something like D-Strike again. They tried it with Power Struggle, but it's like too memey and stuff like that. They will never go to the meta perks again. If they want to change the meta, they have to hard nerf every meta perk. That's the only way they can make viable perks again.
Well, yeah. See, I'm gonna piggyback off that actually. The reason that it's so hard for them to create new perks is because they nerf the meta. They don't ever like put a perk in the game to check the meta. For example, Ruin Undying. Okay, the old one. Okay, how about this? Whenever you cleanse a totem, the aura of another totem around the map lights up. There's a perk for you right there. Like just like if they were to just look at the meta and think of ways to counter it and put it in the game to check it, they would have free perks right there. I just don't understand why they don't do that, because they don't want to power creep the game. I think that is the biggest problem. If you look at everything that they've ever said across the entirety of the game's 5-year run at this point, they don't want to power creep it. That's the biggest issue I think the game currently has right now. In terms of perks, they don't want to power creep it. So whenever something comes out that power creeps it, it gets nerfed. Some of it, again, like Metal of Man, is justifiably so. That perk was broken and needed nerfed. But Undying, maybe solo queues, it was OP in solo queue, but Swift could handle it.
Yeah. And
they could handle it within the first 5 minutes, especially if they had Detective's Hunch, which already existed to check Undying, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
They just don't analyze the meta.
Yeah. And small game. Like, you had so many perks that could actually help you with turning totems. So,
or you could just bring them up.
Yeah, or something like that.
I think
like there's so many things to counter hex perks, that nerfing a hex perk just because it's powerful, because it's a hex perk. It's supposed to be powerful. It can be cleansed. So if you make it weak, why should you cleanse it? What's the point of it?
I think I must be the only person that has started playing Undying more since the nerf.
No, I still run Undying. Yeah, I still run it because Ruin's too good. You have to run Ruin. Yeah, I think Ruin is still meta.
Yeah, I just found before, when I did try it out, I just kept losing the Ruin first, and I'd be left. I've lost two totems at this point, 2 perks, should I say, and I didn't get any value out of it. And now at least I know that I've got a backup now. It does its job better now for me than what it did. I know it's going to sound a bit controversial, because obviously before you were getting, 4 attempts at it respawning. Yeah. But for me personally, I would every time lose Ruin first, and I'm like, well, I've still got a totem up, but it's Undying. It's no good to anybody. You know, so
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah, bro, I feel you.
yeah, I'm probably the only one that's actually liked it more since the nerf.
Amazon was like, nothing changed for me. I have so terrible luck that they cancel Undying first all the time. So
Facts, facts.
I mean, I just
nothing.
don't use hex turk. I just don't use hex perks because they're too. I don't like the fact that like they can just be gone. It's
Yeah.
because of the fact that the totem spawn system is just terrible. Like there's so many times you'll see totems that are just wide out in the open with like no. There was one time I did use Rune Undying recently. It was on Larry's. Not only were the totems obvious because they glowed bright on a really dark map, but they were literally both in the same corridor, about 10 steps away from each other, both Ruin and Undying. Like,
Yeah.
You know, I actually have a solution to that. Is that if anyone's ever played Resident Evil Resistance, they did what was called presets. And you could do like custom presets, and you could like customize every single map so that the key items in the map would spawn at the same places every single time. So like, I mean, you couldn't hide your stuff per se, but it would give you like 30 possible spawn locations for a key that the survivors needed, and you could stack it in a room and then fill that room with zombies. Like, it gave you way more control over where those key items in the game spawned in. I feel like if they would just give us a little bit more control over the totem system, a hex perk would be insanely more reliable. And I also just think it's insanely sad that in order to get a halfway decent perk, it has to have a hex. It has to have the word hex attached to
Yeah.
it. I think that's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. And that's been disappointed with some of the, because I was at the same frame of mind as Skinny. I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna, and Cptsalty will vouch for this because I said it to him plenty of times before the change. I was like, I don't want to rely on RNG for my perks, which that's what it felt like when you're using a hex perk. But like you said there, Rosie, the more and more I started using Ruin and Undying, I've just suddenly seen the value in it, and it is just sometimes such a necessity to run with. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Off topic, but do you think licensed DLCs have potential for the new game modes? Excuse me, guys. Personally, I don't think there will be any new game modes in the game. Does anybody else get that feeling?
They confirmed it. They deconfirmed new game modes on one of the Q&A. They said they're not doing any new game modes. And honestly, do you want any? They can't even get one right.
Yeah. So I think the different game modes, I think that's probably out of the question now.
TV has different game modes. They can do it. It's a mobile game that has different game modes.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We're going to
I
speak
mean,
about
I
that game soon.
saw on the Reddit someone came up with a fun alternate game mode where it was like, I think it was something like there was a blue team and a red team, and there was 4 survivors and a killer on both teams, and it was basically like the killer on the red team worked to screw over the blue team survivors and vice versa, and it was sort of whose team could get out first and whose team could sacrifice more first, something like that. Can't remember it off the top of my head, but it sounded really good and really interesting. It's just I don't have faith that they'd implement it well if they did go down that route, and I think it would be a bit of a difficult like game mode to get around.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you could, like you said, make your own game modes up, but no, I can't see them ever changing. I think they struggle keeping this one how it is at the moment. Let's have a look. I'd like the Death Note chapter. I heard in the server that asked people would like licensed characters from manga or anime. I think the Trickster's come from anime, hasn't he? Although no one asked.
Yeah, he's anime based.
I heard a change idea of fast track. There's an idea that you get a token each time you get a chase without losing a health effect and same effects. That would probably work better than you get a token when someone gets hit. And can you elaborate on that power creep idea? Like taking the current OP perks, survivor, killer alike, and what would you change?
I'm assuming that's to me. I actually have to mute real fast.
Yeah, of course.
When I come back, well, I told you about that. I have to mute real fast. When I come back, I'll answer that.
Yeah, no problem. Any Skinny or Cptsalty?
I mean, in the meantime, I do want to say, like, so they've said in the past they don't want to do power creep, but they're perfectly fine with pay to win, because you couldn't like get this game on its own with no DLC and have a decent loadout. You literally need to buy certain DLCs to get good perks. It's like that guy who was asking earlier, should I get Deathslinger or Legion? And we were like, oh, get Legion because he's got Discordance. It shouldn't be like that. Why do you have to buy a killer that you're never going to play just for one perk that you might use in the occasional build?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, and their argument is, oh, we've got the Shrine of Secrets. What, you mean the random wheel of, like, never get a good perk, where it'll take forever to get one decent perk on it? And the thing with the Shrine is, it's not even random. They literally can put perks in there if they want to. They do it all the time with the archives. You'll see, like, now, there's a challenge on the current archive to use Breakout. What perks in the Shrine?
It's in
Breakout.
there, yeah.
They do it all the time. So it's not even random. They have direct influence over the Shrine. So people will say, like, oh, DS hasn't been in the Shrine for years. It's like, yeah, because the devs don't want it to be. It's not random at all. They can literally go, we'll do this perk, this perk, this perk, and this perk. And
Yeah.
the thing with the Shrine as well is it picks perks that you have for free. So it wastes slots. You could be getting perks that you don't need to pay for, but instead they're saying, oh, here's this perk that you do already have in the base game. We're going to make you buy it off the Shrine. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I think power creep, I don't know where, like I said, it's impossible, really. It's difficult, really, to discuss because of, like, the fact that they can't really make many more perks without overstepping on the perks they already have. But I definitely think they need to do something about the fact this game's massively pay to win. Like, I mean, people
Yeah.
say that it's not pay to win, it's pay for a better chance to win.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
And it
it's
was
pay to win because you couldn't get a 4K at red ranks if you didn't have, like, things like barbecue and
If you have bad
ruins.
survivors, you can. But
I mean,
the
yeah, but
problem is-
if they're bad survivors, that's not really it's like I was going to bring up earlier when we were talking about making, like, Smurf accounts. Ryuga did a video where he went from rank 20 to rank 1 with perkless Addonless Legion. Those early games are like cakewalks. I haven't really caught to the end of the games yet, though, because it's
Yeah.
like a 1 hour thing, but I'd assume the later games would be harder. But, like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just down to the fact that the perks are really pay to win. I don't know. Power creep, I can't report on, but pay to win, definitely.
Okay, I'm back now, so I can take power creep.
Yep.
Okay. Now this becomes a lot easier when you follow other games. Okay. I want to start with that notion. The biggest notion perpetrated by idiots in this community is that you can't compare the game to other games because it's just so different, and that's complete bullshit. Okay, that's an excuse so they can just hide behind the bad balance. They don't have to fix it if they just say we don't have to. But so if you compare it to other games, such as the biggest comparison would be TCGs, okay? Dead by Daylight releases sets of different perks in the same way that a TCG releases sets of different cards, okay? In order for a TCG to remain alive, it power creeps itself. The new set is better than the previous set, so you will buy more cards so you can keep the game alive, okay? And the devs have stated that they don't want to do this because they don't want to, like, punish you for not having the new meta, like, which... I mean, here's what you do. First of all, it's $10. That's insanely. It's not very cheap at all. And you're worried about people not having money. How about you put the perks on sale for 99 cents? There you go.
Yeah.
There's a solution right there. But be beside the point. The effect that has across the game is that the game remains stale. You've had Dead Hard that's been meta since it came out. You've had Hex Ruin meta since it came out. All this stuff has been meta since it came out. Because they do power creep the game. Even though that they say they don't, they eventually do. Sometimes a perk comes out and breaks the game, as you saw with X Undying. Eventually they do it anyway. But the fact that they don't want to, just it keeps the game very, very stale and very, very boring. Because they just don't allow themselves to continue improving upon what's already there. And that effect is that it makes people leave because there's no point. There's no point to keep going. And it makes the game boring, stale, and it problematic because the meta just goes unchecked for so long. It's like, oh, the survivor has Dead Hard, I can't check it because I have nothing to counter it. And the few counters that do exist, like Clown's exhaustion add-ons, just had to go. They were just too good. Like, not only do they not, like, check the meta, but they make the meta even better by nerfing things. I just think they nerf way too much. If they stopped nerfing and implemented power creep, the game would be a lot healthier because everything would have more checks. It's how you make healthy games.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm done.
It's interesting because I've brought it up. I think it's probably the third time tonight I've brought it up, but I'm the same with killers. I have been disappointed with killers, and someone commented on one of my videos the other day, and it was about a trickster one, and they were like, twins are good if you play them right. You know, you don't play fair. Twins are very good. Blight's a very strong killer. And I'm like, you've misinterpreted what I'm saying. I'm not saying these killers are weak, but these killers aren't being used because in my opinion, they can't hold their own against the top teams. So people aren't going to play them, and this is touching upon what you said, Rosie. This is coming to the same thing, not just with perks, but with the killers. You always find yourself playing the same killers. Against the same killers, sorry. So when you're a survivor, you'll come across, you know, the amount of times where I'm having a good stint of survivor play, and I'll play one killer, and then straight after I'm playing again, and the first time I think it's, could be the same person again. You know, because it's just rows upon rows of the same killer playing, and that's because they're not bringing out strong killers, in my opinion. And it's summed up with It's summed up with a trickster. You know, the trickster. Why would I pick the trickster over the huntress? You know, would I pick the trickster over the huntress if I'm playing to win a game? Probably not. You know, and that's the issue that I've got, is they're not looking at stuff that they've got, like you said, with the perks, and thinking, how can we improve this? How can we make this better? How can we make this more fun for players to get these new things? And that's where I'm feeling at the moment, is that, you know, this is why I play the same killers more or less all the time. You know, I'm trying to keep playing different ones, but I'm finding myself drawn to the same ones because I'm trying to be competitive, trying to get some good videos, so I'm playing the same killers. So hopefully that answers your question about the power creep there. What new cultures would you like to incorporate? Just before we move on to that question, I'm Trash, there was a question from Reaper Tech who asked about toxicity in the game. Now, when I read this straight away, I thought your friend Rosie. So it was, you know, the video was about toxicity, but he said, do you think it's being caused
my best friend.
Do you think it's being caused by the developers? The toxicity, is it caused and encouraged by developers?
Yep. I have an example. It's the game I played before Dead by Daylight, and I put 6k hours in, was Gloria Victis. And it was basically the most toxic community I ever saw. It was racist, homophobe, and people were just like, oh, the Polish people are toxic. We hate all Polish people. And they were like, fucking burn the Polish people. It's like the developer made that worse because they were Polish, and they reacted exactly like people would think they would react. They were punishing people that would show this the racist card, even though those people in the game were actually toxic. Like really, the people were hacking, cheating, trying to make the other side miserable, and because the devs were Polish, they were just looking away all the time. It's something like that. They give you the opportunity to do what the fuck you want, and if someone complains or criticizes them for a good reason, you get gaslighted by the whole community just because of that. And that's how toxicity is started. It's because the developer want people to do whatever they want, and they don't want to limit themselves in something. You see it in the entitlement of survivor versus killer players. Like, none of them are correct, because none of them is actually thinking about the consequences of the things they say. And the devs can't just say, oh, we are killer mains, or we are survivor mains, or we favor non-side, we want to have a balanced game. No. Because if they say, oh, hooks are the win condition, then people that go for kills would be mad. If they say kills would be the win condition, then someone like Tutel would cry out and say, but that's not skillful enough, you know? It's like those entitlement of the player base and the possibilities, especially survivor have in this game, to abuse anything. That causes toxicity, and the devs don't do anything against that.
Okay.
I'm intimidated, bro. I'm intimidated, Squinny. So you gotta go, dude.
I mean, they're sort of 50-50 with it. I mean, they're implementing this new chat filter, which is over the top, by the way. I've seen YouTube get censored on the new chat filter, if anyone has ever tested that. Literally typing the word YouTube and it comes up censored. In any way you type it, you type the word full, you space out each letter. Nah. You can type the word YouTuber, but not the word YouTube. That will get censored on the chat filter. But that's just something I wanted to bring up, that chat filter is stupid. But it's a step in the right direction, I feel. Like, you know, getting people to stop saying like racist and homophobic stuff in the chat just because they know they're not going to get punished for it. Like,
Yeah.
it, and the report system, as much as people say like they never read it, apparently I mean, this is just going off what they've said. They do read it. It's just that the amount of times people false report overweighs the actual reports. If they get like 100 reports a day, and like 99 of them are just people being like, oh, he slugged me or he camped me, then
Yeah.
it's not going to work. And then the one dude who's being like, yeah, he was racist and homophobic, he gets away scot-free because the 99 other people were just fake reports that like didn't need to be done. So they do try, and it's just a problem that you have with any large communities. There's going to be toxic people, and you'll never really fully scrub them away. But they'd also they're trying. They're just not trying hard enough, from what I see. The thing that bothers me is why survivors and killers go at each other's throats being toxic. If you can't have one role and not have the other, like it's evident. I mean, the emblem system's bugged as it is, but like it's evident in the emblem system, particularly for Survivor. If you have a bad killer and you barely ever get chased by them, they never down anyone, so you can never unhook anyone. You're only left to do gens, and at best, you'll only safety pip. If you then go into the endgame chat and trash that killer for not doing well, you're not helping them. They're not going to get any better.
Yeah.
They're going to keep going to other games where other people are never going to do well. But then it's the same on the other side. If you're like a god tier killer who just downs everyone in 5 seconds and slugs everyone and then one hooks everyone, you're not going to do well either. And then if you trash the survivors for going down quick,
Yeah.
You need both teams to work in harmony in a way for both of you to do well, to have fun. You can't have one role overpower the other, because then neither role will do well in the ranks. It's just, they try with toxicity, but it doesn't they don't try hard enough.
It's definitely
It's easy. Make it kills versus escapes, and
Well, yeah,
then you
you
don't
can't
have
farm
to.
anymore if you do that.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Farming's stupid anyway. I always get annoyed when I'm playing Survivor and a killer starts to farm. I think, great, you've just wasted the last 15 minutes I could have been doing in an actual match. It bores the hell out of me.
How else that guy gonna get his trapper daily done, bruh? I feel bad for him.
But you're right, what you're saying, SkinnyQuinny.
Okay.
I mean, it's for me, it is a bizarre mentality, and again, I've touched upon it so many times. I'm like, what pleasure do you get out of trash talking when you've won, and what pleasure do you get, especially if you see the survivor or the killer has struggled? I'm just like, you know what? Feel sorry for the survivor. Give them a hatch. Give them the door. I know, Cptsalty, you don't agree with that because you're like, no, they're not going to learn otherwise. But the game's already done at this point.
I give them the hatch if they had a chill game,
Yeah,
I don't care.
Okay, I gotta give my sense.
Go on then.
You keep going.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
you go
So I had, I'm noticing lately the toxicity's getting less and less. I'm not getting trash talks as much these days, which I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, except the other Monday or something. You play a team. They did beat me. I was playing as Legion. They were good. They were good. Hope they're not listening, but they were good. And my initial reaction was, after the trash talking, was, let's have a rematch. Let's rematch. This game needs a rematch button where you can change a killer. That'd be one thing I'd love to bring in. Let's have a rematch. Let's play. But yeah, they were just trash talking. I was like, what pleasure are you getting out of this, guys? What pleasure are you getting? And it's just bizarre. It's a really, really bizarre mentality. However, I do have to say, Rosie, you might want to cover your ears here. I agree with Scott Jundin when I watched that video. I know. But I did agree with what he's saying, because I was around playing in Modern. I was around playing COD, when it first got online and everyone's playing, and it was awful. And I don't quite see that on here yet. I see a lot of bragging on here, a lot of trash talk, but not a lot of the name calling and the seriousity of the comments that you used to get in those games. So that's my take on it anyway. Find it bizarre.
Like I said, but
Okay.
is not toxic at all. Not at
Come
all.
on, boys. All right, Rosie's turn, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. First, I have a confession to make. That's my first thing. If you notice, if you go under the things you can report for, one of the things you can report for is error in design. So every time I get keyed, I report the key users for error in design. That's my confession, though, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All seriousness, I actually know the video. I actually know the Scott Gem video you're talking about. I actually agree with that one too. See, the thing with that guy is he's very hit and miss. He's the most hit and miss guy in the community. Sometimes he'll like be dead on, and then sometimes he won't be. That's like the serious take on him. But the main thing with toxicity, okay. Again, I think what's really happening, it has a lot to do with the matchmaking. I'm gonna just keep bringing that up. It's hard to be toxic to somebody you're getting your beat by. So when the matchmaking's bad and the killer's winning, I mean, you might have that one survivor who teabags you, but you're winning. You don't really give a fuck. When you give a fuck is when you're losing, and I think that that's when that's the real victimization aspect of it. But it's another complicated topic. The issue of toxicity, again, you can't completely weed it out, but there is an extreme amount of entitlement which leads to toxicity. I actually have a video on true entitlement against legit criticism of the game. And I think in order for the devs to actually take a stand on toxicity, they need to point out what actually not toxic is. They don't need to say camping, like they don't have to say. They framed it wrong when they said you can't ban people for camping. You know what I mean? They say you can't report them from camping. They didn't say camping is good. They didn't say it's like something you're not allowed to be mad at. They didn't say you can't be angry at the killer. They should say that. I think they should come out and say you do have no right to be mad about this. And I also think they need to come out and say not every game you play is going to be fun, and you are not entitled to a fun match every single time. It's so sad that they have to say that to this community, because when the community is full of brats, you have to say that eventually. But the problem is everyone just thinks they're entitled to a fun match, and I think you would really. The point, it's not a survivor killer discussion. It's an entitlement versus toxic entitlement versus criticism discussion. You need to know what's entitlement and what's not. And the more people say that word incorrectly, it becomes something of like people just parrot it now. They just say, "Oh, you're just being entitled," because they don't agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Then I think that's a very massive problem in this community. And again, content creators perpetrate it. Scott Jun makes daily use of the word entitled, and I just think that's a word we should say a lot less.
Okay, now my take. J-Allo sent me a video of two talent against the toxic, in quotes, survive with friends on Coldwind Farm. I think it was Bottom Field to Clown. And he always said, look at this toxic survivor body blocking for each other. It's like, okay, first of all, you know this game is won before. So if people body block for others so they don't get down, it's a good team play, you know? It's not toxic. You're not entitled to have chases where no one interrupts you. You know, you're not entitled to get much chases. That's not the fucking thing. It's like if the survivors body block for each other, that means they know what they are doing. You know, you are entitled to think that you get this chase done, and no one can stop you from doing that chase. That's entitlement. It's like it's not toxic to body block. It's not toxic to camp or slug or tunnel. You are not entitled to tell someone else that they can't do that because you have a different opinion about a topic. You know, and under the comment section, there were so many true talent fanboys that said, because of that shit, Survive with Friends is broken. So first of all, if that was a Survive with Friends, I would have killed that team in 5 minutes because they were serving themselves on a silver platter. Like in 2 or 3 timestamps, you can see Feng or even the Nia trying to take a hit for the Felix. And he just ignored Feng or Nia with save the best for last. Like, that's free real estate for any killer that plays save the best for last. Getting as many hooks as possible to get more stacks on save the best for last. Especially with something like Sloppy Butcher. And he always said, let's survive your friends. It's like, no, that's just good solos and probably maybe 2-man. It's not a 4-man because they were not committed enough to be a 4-man. And that's the whole thing. It's like he's a big crybaby about what's not going his way he tells toxic. Like guy that is or this only that slugged him and got the 4K, and people were told him in the stream, and this only didn't do anything wrong. His kit is based around slugging, and he played around his kit. And it's like, but I don't have fun. It's like you are not entitled to have fun. And if why should the only give you a chase if the only knows you're a good looper? Why should I give you a chance to loop me around? Why should I hook you, go away from the hook, let people unhook you, so I have to catch you again through all the broken loops on Coffin Farm? Like, why should I do that? Like I want to win, and if I get you out of the game as fast as possible, then it's easy for me. If I keep you slugged because you can't loop, that's easier for me, and that's something that's entitlement of saying you can't let me slug because I should have fun, but no. It's like you can't tell people that they can't do something just because you don't like it.
And that's the whole crux of the hooks versus kills debate. And I think that's what, and we were talking about before we went live, we know there's some people that it got the backs up a bit, you know, some of the comments were saying True would run rings around us all, he would loop us all day long, and I don't think that's the issue, you know. Nobody is down talking how good he is at a game or, you know, what he's good at. And of course, you know, when you play the game professionally, that is his game. He plays that game so many hours a day professionally. He gets paid for doing so, off Twitch streaming, off video, YouTube. You know, he's a professional Dead by Daylight gamer. So to come on and say he's going to run loops around us and stuff like that is pretty much besides the point. So I know last week, was it yourself, Skinny, that said you didn't particularly like True Talent? So, but that's your opinion. You are entitled to that. Just to clear this up, for me, I do like True Talent. I've said it before. He was the first person that I actually watched when I was playing the game, trying to learn the game. So I respect his opinion. But like what Cptsalty said there, that video, and you can go, it's probably still up on his videos now, and it was something like Toxic Clicky Clicky. That was the title of it, and it was a clown game where he overchased at the beginning. He then complained about the body blocks, even though he had save the best for last. He then said things like, which this is a side that I think myself, yeah, this is probably not the best, but he said, I have outplayed the survivor. Now, when I watched the video, I was like, at which point have you outplayed the survivor? You know, because you've caught up to him, but that happens. As a killer, you are faster than a survivor. You will eventually catch up with them. Then the friends came in, done a body block, and that was that. So, you know, and that video, for me, did scream a bit of entitlement. You know, he plays the game, he's a professional gamer, he's doing this, and he is wound up and tilted about survivors, like Cptsalty said, that played well. I would be sat there like this if they'd done that against me, you know, applauding them, going, yeah, you know, well played, guys, that's how you do it. But it was seen the opposite way. Now, is that entitlement in the community? Is that something that'll spread? You know, last time I checked, he had over 370,000 subscribers, you know, so he's got obviously a big fan base. And is that something that will spread down and people repeat it? People will say the same thing. And yeah, we had a discussion about it, didn't we, Cptsalty, about it? And
yep,
he pretty much summed it up there. And this is not like.
And it happened.
Yeah.
Under the video, so many yes-sayers say, "Oh, True is correct. Truth with that's why killers suck to play here because you play bad." Like what? That's why players suck to play. The killers suck because the loops are in favor of the survivors. If you run after Felix that didn't know how to loop, just presses W and falls off the harvester 3 times in a row because you can't hit your bottles at all, that's not the fault of the survivors that you play bad in this moment. And you have to realize that you say, oh, I played bad and they played better. They weren't playing good. They just played better because True Talent played absolute shit. He didn't know how to play clown in this moment. Like, I think he was tilted from other games before because MMR was tested and it was on the whole day.
Yeah,
is that why my matchmaking was so good last week?
Probably.
Were you getting put up against rank 20s, Rosie? This MMR is like
No.
sort of like a backhanded compliment.
No, bro. My last stream we played like 5 Swifts, and I'm like, like, the matchmaking got good this weekend.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, oh, MMR's being tested again. Oh, that makes sense.
It's something
But
that he put on. He put on a few of his videos. Nothing official's been said. I think MMR's been on for quite a while. I think it's been on since the last update, personally. But that's just.
I mean,
my
the
opinion.
matchmaking is so broken, you would have never known if the MMR was broken until it's corrected itself out.
Yeah.
Because the problem with our last experiment was we didn't give the system time to correct itself out. They yanked it out of the game after a week because everybody bitched. But if you slide it in and give the system the time it needs to correct itself out, boom, there you go. All of a sudden, it's working.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
Considering the fact they've been suspiciously quiet about MMR since the last time they said they'd removed it, it does feel like they've sort of shadow activated it and just sort of not addressed it in the hopes that people won't really notice.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a quick jump on some of the questions. So, Survivor role's full of losers. Reaper Tech. Really don't like survivors, do you, Reaper Tech? I am trash. I don't know how it is on PC, but on console does it seem like the players are too toxic. I found it the other way around. When I was on console, I found it more toxic, but PC I find it less toxic. But yeah, different ones. Do you guys notice any difference? Any of you guys play on console or PC?
I play on console. I
Yeah.
believe I don't play on both, but for my experience, I turned the messaging off within the first 2 weeks of playing because I got told to go kill myself really fast.
Yeah, I've done the same on console as well. If I would recommend it, just switch your messages off, and that's the end of that. Go on, Skinny.
I've noticed a lot more consoles teabag more often than PC players because they don't have an end-game chat to say anything.
Yeah.
Probably a good thing.
Sometimes I get really dedicated players that send me friend requests with a message on it. Like, that's how dedicated they are to telling me slander after the match.
Yeah.
I mean,
I admire those players, dude.
I had a guy who was on Xbox send me a message through the Windows Xbox app to tell me that I sucked. He literally cross-platform hate mailed me. And I just sent a message back saying, like, dude, this is a first. You've actually made history for me. This is amazing.
You cross-platform hate mail?
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Reaper Tech. DBD streamers try to look so good at the game and they think they know everything and are entitled. But honestly, sometimes DBD streamers just say and do stupid things. I think the problem that sometimes people have, and this was the issue with some of the comments we got last week on the podcast, is that people were saying we were forcing our opinions, and it is just our opinions. You know, I put a video out there said I think the Trickster's the worst killer. That is not a factual statement. That's just my opinion. And I think a lot of DVD streams have to do that. And you've got to remember, when people are on a smaller platform, which most of us are here, we do have to sort of try to get attention. So me putting the video out saying a Trickster, with a big thumbnail saying Trickster is the worst killer in DVD, there is an element of clickbait on there. We don't have the luxury at the moment, because we haven't done it for long, of sitting there with, you know, as soon as these big guys put a video out, you know, they've got 30,000 views straight away. YouTube will then start recommending them more. We don't have that luxury, so we have to do stuff to get attention. So it isn't a case
I don't know why people haven't figured out I have an exaggerated character yet.
So I think people need to realise that there is an element of that as well, but it is just opinions, and nobody's forcing their opinions on people. It's just
in my opinion, there are streamers that are actually pretty wholesome about that thing. They don't take the BD too serious, but they spit facts, like Papas and Farmer John, for example. They don't take this game serious. They are like, oh, whatever. The behavior is just shit. They will shit out. This is a machine that shits out more content that is bugged, and I don't care anymore. But they present facts in their streams, and they don't present it like I'm better than them. You know, we all don't want to have fun sometimes, and games can be stressful. But they are more wholesome, and they're not like too talented. They tell people that they are bad or that I'm outplaying them. No, they say, oh, tough games, just stressful games. It's like
Yeah.
it can happen. It's something like whatever. They have bigger player bases than most other people, and they are wholesome about that. But they also say it's frustrating, and I don't want to stream because I hate that banana right now. Like Farmer John says, every 2 weeks he says, "Oh, I need to take time off 3 days because this game makes me like want to kill myself."
Yeah.
It's just sometimes like that, but. We go back to the entitlement of people thinking they are better than others, which is the problem. It's like Tutel thinks he's better than others, and I can prove he's not better than others. He's not better than the average killer, probably. He knows how to mind game and thinks he outplays people and lose, but like I said in last podcast, the rest around that, like hearing people working on a gen behind him, like in this video with Clown, that's something he doesn't care about. What is happening around? He's focused on the chase and only on the chase. Yeah. While the other people, like they check gens close together, they break chase, they juggle a lot more, they injure multiple people. They have more of that, and that's those people. They prove that they are better. They don't have to tell it, and they say, "Oh, it's a game. It's just a game. Have fun." Yeah. But they proved that they are better. They don't have to say it all the time.
I think because of the type of game it is. And this is what I think about the big content creators, especially the ones who have got 8,000-9,000 hours. I think the type of game it is, and I do think the game is very RNG based. So exactly. If I was to play against, we'll use True Talent as an example, I would probably say if he was Killer Am Survivor, I think he would probably kill me. I'll give him the credit. I think he'll probably kill me 8 times out of 10. The 2 times where he might not kill me is when RNG hasn't been on the side. And that's why I think it's very difficult to have a competitive mindset with this game, because a lot of it is based on RNG. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I just think...
I think if I just hide and do gens, I would get away from Kuchen because he never checked gens, so why should I bother about getting chased by that guy? Like, if he's so tunnel vision on his chases, why should I give him the fun? I just want to tilt him now and don't give him chases, But it's like not toxic, it's just like he presents that persona and has a huge attacking place on area on his body. Like he's just... People call him the Oshido of the killer community. People hate him on the forums. People say what he's saying should not be used as something, as fact, because he's all talking about around in entitlement. It's not facts that he presents. Yeah. Sometimes yes, but most of the time it's just his entitlement that he tries to mix with facts, which is something that you should not do. Especially with a big fan base, you're just brainwashing your people to believe the things you say.
I think just to counter what you're saying there, see, as I say, this is probably being biased because, as I say, I do like watching his videos, I do enjoy his content. So for me, I think he does get a lot of unnecessary hate. I really do. I think people have this opinion of him straight away, and I do think he gets a bit of a hard time because I do think. Most of the time he tries to present, and that was something that I remember I spoke to Terrico about. Terrico, when he was doing his DBD videos, like I said to him, I don't necessarily agree with everything you're saying, but I like the way you're presenting it. And I think True Talent does have a point on the stuff that he says, like the hooks versus kills. I know we've said this before we came on, Cptsalty. I don't actually disagree with what he's saying, but it's reality and what we actually want, expectations. Reality is that we can't just go for kills, hooks, because the game doesn't allow it because it's too survivor-sided. The expectation is that it's less survivor-sided, and yes, of course, we'd all like to play, happy families and go get 3 hooks each and everyone enjoys the game, but that's not the reality of the game is where it is right now. Does anyone agree with that, or does people think it should be like that now?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. We talked about a lot of things in that brief part, so let me start with the measure of entitlement. As we say, entitlement is a big reason why people do stuff. Okay, this is another thing I said in my entitlement video. I believe there are 2 forms of entitlement in this community. Okay. there's what I call there's actual like entitlement, and then there's this other thing that I define as in the moment entitlement. Okay, I'm sure you can go find an instance of everybody ever of having in the moment entitlement.
Yeah.
Ots, fucking kind, gentle Ots punched a camera when a survivor was bad.
Yeah.
Like for real. Like you can have like you can find moments from everybody. And but the problem is it's up to the viewer to be distinguish what is entitlement versus what is not entitlement. And the problem is, I think there's too much blind loyalty to content creators in this community.
Definitely.
When somebody says something, people just assume it's fact, and I think that's a big, massive problem because Scott Junt's fan base is like Scott Junt literally thinks the game is gonna die if you balance it. Like, and his fans spew that. They just say if you balance the game dies, and I'm like, where's your fucking proof of that? Like they just asserted a claim in there. He just put a claim in there, and no one asked for proof of the claim. But that's blind loyalty to content creators. And then as for the, I had one more thing. What else were we talking about? We were saying something about True. That was the first thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, something with that. That he says something like body blocking is toxic and someone should not teabag and stuff like that. It's entitlement.
Well, yeah, that definitely is. But see, I just think there needs to be a bigger actually analysis in the community of like just because somebody has in the moment entitlement, that doesn't make them an entitled player. It means they have in the moment entitlement. Everybody does it. You just have to. You got to look. When they take 4 days off from the game and then come back, is their view the same on what happened? Like, I'm sure if you went to a random True talent stream right now and asked about body blocking, True would say it's a legitimate thing that you're allowed to do. Because he's had some distance from it happening to him, and his in the moment entitlement is gone. And like, I think that you have to look closer. You have to let the rage die down, because here's what I was gonna say: the game is a frustrating game, as acknowledged by the devs themselves. The game is inherently designed to be frustrating. And you have to acknowledge that when you listen to some people analyze some things. Because if they analyze something while that frustration is in effect, you have to take that with a grain of salt. You just have to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agree.
I mean, that's not in the moment entitlement, because in most streams he's saying, oh, fucking former and so his friends should not be in the game, or like delete this shit, or nerf them to ground because they just break the game or something like that. We're just like, okay, we know some of our friends breaks the game. That's not an entitlement, that's a fact. But like that they can't body block, that they can't get carried by their teammates, that's fucking entitlement. And that's what True Talent basically says in any fucking stream. He says every time he faces against a good team, he's saying it's a so my friends. It can be good solos. You don't know that, you know. You can't know that. They could just be 4 good solos that play together, which because they can coordinate, because they all know what they are about to do. And he calls them survive your friends, toxic, clicky, because they body block for each other. And that's entitlement, and that's not just like something because he's tilted. That's what his whole point is about his vision. Is that something like that should not be in the game. And that something like body blocking or like flashlight blinding or sabotaging a hook is something toxic, which is like, no, it's part of the game. It's in the game, and survivors could use it. If you like it or not, it's not toxic. It's basically good. And if you play save the best for last, body blocking is really fucking nice for you. But like in general, it's nothing that's toxic.
I think that the issue is, and I think you see this a lot with the big content creators, is that, like I said, the professional Dead by Daylight gamers, and if you look at the views they get, obviously still a lot more views than your average YouTuber, but if you look at the views when they don't play Dead by Daylight in comparison to what they do, the community is based on that. So I think, and I put myself in them shoes, Rosie, SkinnyQuinny, I mean, obviously you play Dead by Daylight, but Rosie, you play in other games as well. If you were forced to play Dead by Daylight 1 p.m. till 6 p.m. every day, because that's your job, would you lose the will to live? Because I know I certainly would.
Oh, I certainly would, bro. I can barely play the game. I can barely play the game now as it is. I usually now my time has been very constrained lately, but I was making it a point to play it on weekends.
Yeah.
And some weekends I can, sometimes I can't. It depends on if my brother is home or not. Because my brother's home, he gets to sleep where the television is, and there's nothing I can do about that. It's just sometimes I can get to it, sometimes I can't. But I barely can play it. Like whenever I sit down to play the fucking game, I go, okay, we're gonna do 2 hours and then we're done. Like for real. Especially if you go back and watch my streams from like a few months ago, like we were breaking 2 hours and then that was it for Dead by Daylight, because that's pretty much all I could take. Like the game just creates such an aura of frustration. I mean, I'm sure somebody could write a fucking psychology essay on Dead by Daylight. I'm sure they fucking could, because the game bullies you so much, and then you're back on it. You're back on it. Like as soon as my time opens up, I'll be playing it more, because it bullies you and you hate it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what are you doing? I'm going to play Dead by Daylight. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I couldn't imagine doing it
Yeah.
for a living. I really couldn't.
I mean, I'm trash. You know, you did say, I don't know, I don't play DBD as a job. So for some people, they're like, hang on, you're talking about someone who's just sat playing a game and they're getting paid for doing it. So I appreciate that some of us are going out and doing jobs that we don't enjoy, things like that. But I mean, I'm looking just from a Dead by Daylight point of view, not, you know, being a content creator. And fair play to these big content creators, because they have worked hard to get the audience that they've got. And as I say, but it sometimes does dawn on me, I'm thinking, like, Cptsalty on that video, someone said, I think he had a few hard games that day, and I'm like, I can probably imagine that, because you could just tell when he was playing that game. But I have said it before, and people keep coming into the chat and saying, can you get Cptsalty on? By all means, this is an open invitation. If he did want to come on and discuss some of the things that he speaks about, I would be very grateful. I'm sure the rest of you guys would as well. However, I know big fish, little fish type thing, it's probably very unlikely, but like I said, the offer is always there for any of the big content creators to come on, join us, and set the record straight, because we are just going off assumptions of what we think.
Yeah, I want to destroy this whole 12 hooks mentality of Cptsalty, so he gets this in his mind. So get him on this podcast.
we should have reached out to Otts and True when they did their debate and said, do it on our thing so we can do it while we're here.
Yeah, you know, I did think that, and I was like, you know what, we're in the middle of a break from it. Otherwise, I would have definitely sent that invite. But it's never too late. Like
we could have been the moderators, bro. You know, somebody told me that wasn't a real debate because it didn't have moderators. Fuck off. Yeah. Fuck off with that fucking noise. Get out of here, dude.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It certainly did enjoy it, and enjoyed hearing what they had to say about each other. So, and their own thoughts, really. So that's it for the questions from me, guys. We were going to talk about Identity 5. I know Rosie and Cptsalty wanted to bring it up, but we have run out of time. So can we shelf that for next week? And I promise I will play it this week. I never got a chance to this week. I want to play it before we start talking about it. But Identity 5, I've watched your videos, Rosie, on it, and I'm like, this looks interesting. Obviously, the graphics aren't quite the same as Dead by Daylight, but it does look like quite an interesting game. So
controls are a problem too.
Controls are a problem too. But is there any questions from the chat at all? I know there's some people still in chat. So, hang on. I am trash. You're studying psychology. Write a report about Dead by Daylight, please.
I actually did a PowerPoint for Dead by Daylight, and one of my the class was called Folklore. You had to like choose like a group. Folklore was it was a really weird class. It was all online. It was really weird, but you had to like choose like a social group that you were in and do a report on it. And I picked the Dead by Daylight community. I got a name.
Oh yeah.
If you're curious.
right? I think you should
some good points.
That could be shared next week, I think. Bring your report with
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
one of the points, like bring your report with you.
See if I can dig that up. It's in my computer somewhere.
Yeah, sounds interesting. So, last chance, chat. Any questions you've got for myself or the guys at all? If you want to ask something now, speak now, or forever hold your peace. Read the report for us. Yeah, that's next week's task. We will look into that report. I'll keep reminding him daily. Dig that report up. I'm really
I'll dig
interested
it.
now.
Might make some edits to it, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's it, guys. If there's no questions, then any questions from you guys, Rosie, Skinny, or Cptsalty? Anything you want to talk about before we leave?
I'm fulfilled. I'm good.
What's your opinion on the spawn points of survivors? Should they spawn next to a gen like what they do now, or should they change something with that? Maybe something like that. Because I think a lot of things is based on spawn points that are shitty. If the killer spawns in the middle of the map, they can spawn in all four corners, so it's a guessing game. And if you guess wrong, you lose the gens. If you spawn in one corner, they will spawn on the opposite side, so it's easier to find them. But survivors can literally spawn next to a gen or close to it, so they can work on it.
Yeah.
Or next to a totem, which is something like, why is it so easy for survivors to start a game? So,
yeah.
I mean, I know of a fair few maps that have like consistent spawns, like the Yamaoka, the Spirit one. If you spawn anywhere anywhere from the middle to the shack side of the map, you can guarantee there'll be at least one or two survivors to the left or right side of the main house. Or like Dead Dog, if you're not in the saloon or like near it, there's probably a survivor at least behind it or around it. Like those maps have consistent spawns.
You know the game. You spawn downstairs, they will spawn at one of the exit gates. You spawn upstairs, they will spawn in the bathroom.
Yeah, like there's a lot of consistent spawns in a few maps, and I kind of like it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the spawn locations aren't the problem. It's the because again, that's Identity 5 has set spawns and their top level scene's fine. So like the spawns aren't the problem. It's just the killer's inability to pressure. And like there are set spawns, so like those are the maps that you kind of have an easier early game on. But if there was like there should literally be maybe 3 or 4 spawns per map. I don't know how many there actually are, so there could be. But like you should be able to like look at those. I think one thing I think the game is missing is the ability to look at every map from a bird's eye view. If we had the ability to look at every map from a bird's eye view, it would be much easier to find things and know where things are. Like you say, where hatches, like, you know, sometimes some hatch locations, you know, some you don't. But if you were just like, if it was like a bird's eye view of Shelter Woods, you could see every fucking possible location that the hatch could spawn. I think the game's really missing that, and I wish they would put that out on their wiki as an official source for you to actually use. I think that would help a lot with the early game.
Talking about Shelter Woods, there's this phenomenon when you spawn in the middle next to the big tree. They can spawn in one of the 4 corners. So that's the guessing game where I'm talking about. They won't spawn. There's a rule. Survivors can't spawn inside of 4 tiles away from you. So they will spawn after that, and that's basically kind of the corner, the last 3 tiles around the corner. So you have to go there and check it. If they are not there, you check the other side. And if you see none of those corners on the same side, that means they spawned on the other side. And you have to go there, and then the gen is done until you get there, you know? That's something. But if you spawn in shack, which is on a corner, they will spawn on the other side of the map, which is, you will find the chase faster. You will still have to go there, but you know they will spawn there because you have a certain spawn location where they can spawn by using that 4-tile route, you know? And that's the thing. It's like that the killer game can be worse just because you have a bad spawn. And it can be really good for the killer if the killer gets a perfect spawn and he knows where the locations are. And doesn't have to guess and check all corners to check for survivor spawn, you know? It's something like that. That's another thing that map RNG and this RNG can fuck over a killer by just spawning the guy in the middle, like Fractured Cowshed, for example. You know, if you spawn in the middle on the harvester or next to the pig tree, that means the survivors can spawn all over the fucking edges of the map.
Mm-hmm. And the killer should never spawn in the middle. like ever on any
Yep.
map.
Yeah,
They should
exactly.
never,
that's
ever,
annoying.
ever, ever spawn in the middle.
Yep.
That's
One thing
one thing
I-
if we could correct about spawns, it would be that.
One thing I want to bring up loosely ties into this is there's a bug I've noticed recently with Blight where you will bounce off the hatch. The hatch has collision from a certain angle.
Oh, really?
Even if it's invisible, at that moment, you will bounce off of it. And I've noticed through this, there's times where I'll just bounce off nothing and be like, okay, the hatch is there. And then 5 seconds later, I think, wait, wow, why is it spawned there? I've never noticed it spawned there before. Like, so like, I'm gradually learning hatch spawns just purely off of what I bounce off of. If I bounce off something when there's nothing in front of me, it's just thin air. I immediately go, right, hatch is there, and you can tell the angle of it as well because I did some testing with it one time I confirmed where it was it's when the door opens, like the actual hatch door, that's what has the collision. It's the door. So if you bounce on it from like a head-on angle, either coming from the opening of the door or from behind the door, you'll hit it. But if you hit it from the side, no collision. So it's weird. But using that, I've been able to pinpoint where the hatch is. There's been so many games recently where I've like bounced off the hatch randomly and gone, okay, it's there in this random location I'd never have thought to check if I hadn't had this bug happen. Like, so you definitely need to have some way of being able to, like on the wiki. The wiki would be good because I know on the wiki they have like top-down,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like blueprint style
Yeah.
breakdowns of the maps, like the layouts, but they don't show you like general tile spawns. They don't show you main builds. They don't show you gen spawns, totem spawns. They don't show you any of that because it's so random and up in the air. They don't put it on there to tell you like, okay, it could be here, could be there, could be there. They don't do that. Something they should do because intel and info is something you really need in this game. Like if you play in the early days and you don't really know what you're doing, you're going to get screwed over. But then if you come into the game with knowledge, you can use map knowledge and be like, okay, there's a window there, they're going to vault it, I can go here and get them. Or you can do this and do that. They need to have something that can let people learn this without having to put themselves through the playing aspect. Otherwise, they're just going to get like absolutely demolished when they're new to the game. And then they're going to be like, well, this isn't fun, I'm going to go now.
The thing is, the tiles are predetermined. What can spawn on the tiles is random. So the tiles are always the same size, but they can be aligned different. So on Suffocation Pit, you can have the God window open and then having a pallet that leads to the LT wall construction where the window is aligned to the pallet. So you don't have to walk across, like go from the left side. You can directly straight up go through the window. That's something that is determined by RNG. The tiles are always there. You will see there's always an LT wall there and there's always a pallet there. But the alignment of that can change because they can all turn right 360 degrees and be aligned differently. And that's the problem with the game. The tiles are all the same, but how they are aligned and how that makes a location and stuff like that, that's the problem. Something like a Rancid Avatar, for example. It can spawn fractured cowshed level of bullshit, or it can be cool for killer, you know? That's something. But the tiles are always there. The thing is the different alignment. It can be that the pick tree is kinda 90 degree changed, and then there's no LT, there's the LT wall that has the window on the back side, not on the side, so you can't link together those two things. It can also be that the jungle gym or the LT wall is turning around and then has the window aligned with the pick tree, which is then awful for the killer. And that's something that is determined by RNG. And the map tiles don't change that really, because it just changes the alignment of where something is.
Yeah. Well, we'll look at that more into that next week, guys, because I am conscious of the time and I do need to do some things. So thank you for joining us again, guys. Thank you, chat, for your questions, your comments, your support. It is much appreciated, and we will see you all hopefully next week. Maybe with true talent on the show. You never know. All right. Thanks, guys. So I'll cancel it now. Bye-bye.